All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to jump into something that sounds simple, but is, well, it's really not. Who actually owns water? I mean, this is a huge deal. It can affect your property's value, how your town grows, and yeah, even the safety of the water you drink.
So let's start with this basic idea. Imagine a river runs right through your backyard. Do you own it? You'd think the answer would be a simple yes or no, right? Well, surprise! It's way more complicated than that. And it gets right to the heart of how we think about property law. Okay, so to even begin to answer that, we've got to break down the two main types of water rights. And it all boils down to one simple thing. Is the water next to your land moving, or is it just sitting still?
So yeah, you can pretty much split the whole world of water rights into these two big buckets. It really is that simple. Is the water moving, think rivers and streams, or is it still, like a lake or an ocean?
All right, so if you've got a river or a stream on your property, you have what are called riparian rights. Now, this gives you the right to use the water flowing past your land. But, and this is a big but, there's a catch. You can't mess with the flow or the quality of the water for the folks downstream. Makes sense, right? You have to share.
Now, what if you're next to a lake or the ocean? That's where littoral rights come in. This is a little different. It usually means you can use the water for your home, and crucially, it gives you access for stuff like swimming or boating. So, if you're dreaming of building a dock, these are the rights you'd be looking at.
Okay, but here's where it gets really wild. What happens when the water itself moves? I mean, a river isn't static. It's a powerful force, and over time, it can literally redraw your property lines. It can give you land, or it can snatch it right away. And this happens in two main ways. First, you've got accretion. Think of this as a slow, steady gift from Mother Nature, just gradually adding a little bit more land to your property over the years. And then there's the other side of the coin, avulsion. This one is sudden, it's fast, and it can be pretty violent, just tearing a chunk of your land away. So, with accretion, what's happening is the river is slowly dropping off sediment. The technical term is alluvion, right on its banks. You might not even notice it year to year, but over decades, you could actually end up with brand new usable land on your property. And the best part? It's all yours. You get to keep it. Avulsion, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. It is way more dramatic. We're talking about a major flood or a huge storm that just, poof, washes away a piece of your land overnight. And here's the crazy part. Even though your land is now literally at the bottom of the river, the property line usually stays right where it was. All right, so far we've only talked about people lucky enough to live right on the water. But what about everyone else? I mean, what if your farm or your town is miles away from the closest river? How do you get water rights then? Well, there's a legal concept for this, and it's called appropriation. This is basically the process of staking a claim on public water and then diverting it for a specific, beneficial use. That's the key term. Think farming or industry. Once you've appropriated that water, it's exclusively yours to use. Now, as you can imagine, as towns and cities start to grow, individual rights just don't cut it anymore. It gets way too complicated. So people have to start organizing, working together to make sure they have a reliable water supply. And that's how you get these larger groups and, eventually, these formal water districts. And you can see a pretty natural progression here. It usually starts small, right? A bunch of neighbors all need water, so they team up. Maybe they form a little local company to manage things. But as that community gets bigger and bigger, you need something more formal, something that starts to look a lot like a special kind of government. So one of those first steps is often a mutual water company. The easiest way to think about this is like a neighborhood co-op, but for water. A group of water users will actually form a company just to get a steady supply at a decent price. And here's the really interesting part. The shares of stock in that company are often tied directly to the land itself. So if you sell your house, the water rights go right along with it. But then you have irrigation districts, and these are a whole different ballgame. They're a huge step up in scale. They're called quasi-political, which is a fancy way of saying they kind of act like their own little government, but just for water. They're created by specific laws to serve a whole area, and you better believe they are heavily, heavily regulated by the state. So you see how this is building, right? You've got companies and districts all managing water. Eventually, the whole system just gets so massive and complex that you need a higher authority to step in and play referee, especially for big issues like water quality and who gets what. And that, of course, is where the state comes in. And you can literally watch this happen over the last 100 years or so. You had these landmark laws like the Metropolitan Water District Act and the County Water Authority Act. These didn't just tweak the rules, they created enormous agencies whose whole job was to supply water to entire regions. They really laid the foundation for the system we have today.
These special districts are such an interesting creation. Legally, they're state agencies, but they also have a lot of independence. Their mission is usually one of two things. Either they protect land from water, that's your flood control, or they bring water to the land, which is exactly what those massive districts that serve Southern California are all about. Fast forward to today, and the absolute cornerstone of water management is the Porter-Cologne Water Quality Control Act. Seriously, if you want to understand how it all works, this is it. Think of it as the state's master rulebook for everything water-related, quality, conservation, you name it. And what this act does is create a really clear chain of command. At the very top, you have one state-level board that sets the big picture policy. And then, under them, you have 9 different regional boards. Their job is to handle all the local, day-to-day stuff, the administration, the enforcement, making sure the rules are being followed everywhere, from the border with Mexico all the way up to Oregon.
And look, I know this can sound like a lot of bureaucracy, but it's so much more than that. This system is literally what keeps our water safe to drink. It's what gives the authorities the teeth they need to regulate pollution from all kinds of sources, whether we're talking about a leaky septic tank in someone's yard or a factory discharging waste into a river. Which brings us to a final and pretty important thought. We're leaning on this really complex legal system that was built piece by piece over the last century. But it's managing a resource that is getting more and more precious with each passing day. So the big question we have to ask ourselves is this. Are these old laws designed for a different era, really ready for the water challenges we're facing now and the ones that are coming tomorrow?